Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, a couple, both chefs, shared a close bond until the husband learned of his wife's infidelity and involvement in a violent incident. He swiftly filed for divorce, severing ties with her. Despite the emotional turmoil, he remains focused on providing a stable life for their adopted daughter. His ex-wife faces repercussions, losing her job and home, while he and their daughter embrace new adventures and opportunities. Now let's get into the story. My wife and I were chefs in a gourmet kitchen in New York City. We knew each other for 14 years and were married for 9. We enjoyed every day together, working nearly identical shifts at the restaurant. Ratatouille was our favorite movie because our hats were identical. A year after the movie, I actually adopted 2 pet rats as a joke for my wife. She loved them. She told me months later. She didn't know she could get so attached to rodents. Anyway, our relationship was great and full of imagination and happy times. After our rats passed away, we decided to conceive. When we struggled to do so, we took it as a sign to adopt. Our daughter's first birthday with us was her 8th. She had some emotional challenges that we worked through together through honesty and patience. It felt like our family was strong and united. So when I got a phone call from the police 2 years later, I was extremely confused. I was at the grocery store with my daughter, and as far as I knew, my wife was working a shift at the restaurant. The police informed me that she was at the police station unharmed, but they wanted to ask me some questions. I was a little unsettled, and my mind raced until I got there with our daughter under my sister's watch. The police started asking me questions like, "When did you find out what your wife was doing? And how long did you plot revenge against him?" All I would ask repeatedly, "What is going on? Where was my wife? What happened?" I had no idea what they were talking about, and after about an hour and a half of interrogation, they believed me. They verified that I was at the grocery store at the time of the attack. The attack on AP in his own home. While my wife was there having intimate with him, he was stabbed by an intruder while he was in bed with her. The culprit was covered from head to toe and fled the scene. My wife was the one that called 911. I was terrified. I started crying uncontrollably. My wife cheated on me and experienced this traumatic event. Then I felt relieved that I was recorded at a different place during the attack. Being the dedicated father I was determined to be as I shopped for groceries, my wife was cheating on me. I felt so stupid, even though there was no way I could have known. Then the police told me this guy was in critical condition and he was having an affair with more than 4 other women. My wife just happened to be there when someone else wanted revenge. They let me go, and I saw my wife waiting for me. She looked disturbed and restless. When she saw me, there was brief relief, followed by great sadness. When she remembered she cheated on me, I walked right by her, refusing to speak. She followed me crying and begging to talk about this. I told her we were over and that I planned to start seeing other people immediately. I sarcastically told her she made an excellent choice for an affair partner because he was very experienced. She admitted she was extremely stupid for sleeping with this guy after they talked for about 2 months on a dating app, but that was all he would ever amount to in her life. She pretty much demanded that I forgive her because she was worth it and we already spent so many happy years together. I told her she ruined everything. Just before I slammed my car door and drove home. I called my parents and sister came over to help me through this time and try to make our home environment happy for my daughter. Within 24 hours, I filed for divorce. She tried to come home that same day and got into a fight with my parents when they refused. After some screaming, they actually managed to convince her to leave with just a few suitcases of her belongings. When our daughter saw her again, she told her she was very disappointed in her. Can you imagine that? Hearing that your 10-year-old adopted daughter is disappointed in you? After all we went through to adopt her and work through her emotional trauma, My wife let her down and made her a little less hopeful. That was enough punishment in itself. But my wife was obviously divorced by me, so she lost her home, and then she was also fired from the restaurant. I told our boss that we worked for the past 12 years what happened and how our relationship ended in the worst way possible. She lied to me that day. She didn't have a shift to work. They decided this made her untrustworthy and fired her for it. She was so deflated and disappointed in her life's new path that she didn't fight for her job. She just accepted it. She's still living at her parents' without a job or plans for the future. My daughter and I have been quite the opposite, just hopeful and keeping ourselves busy. Besides work and school, we go hiking, camping, sailing, and travel to fun destinations. Today's second story. In this story, a man recounts his wife's 25th birthday concert experience, where she claimed to be saved by a stranger amidst a crowd stampede. Suspecting infidelity, he confronts her, finds incriminating texts, and ends their marriage. Despite her attempts to reconcile, he dismisses her, leading to her desperate situation. Now let's get into the story. My wife went out with her 3 best friends for her 25th birthday. We were married for 2 years, together for 4. Everything about our relationship was amazing. Our chemistry and care for each other seemed like it would last forever. I trusted her to go to the concert without me because it was her friend's treat, and I didn't want to impose. It was a heavy metal band, and they did not anticipate the shocking event that would occur. As soon as the music began, and the group was about to come out, the crowd made a mad stampede for the stage. Rows 1 to 5 were jumped over, and people were climbed over. My wife was separated from her friends involuntarily, like being caught in a wave. When it got to where there couldn't fit any more people, my wife was at risk of being seriously injured. One strong security guy just happened to be right beside her, noticed her struggle, and succeeded in pulling her over the rib-high fence. They both continued helping people escape the pressure until 10 entire minutes after that when the fence fell. There were severe injuries, so the concert was canceled. I saw a broadcast about it on the news and tried calling my wife over and over, but she wouldn't answer. I was starting to assume the worst and called one of her friends. This girl was upset, but not hurt, and said they got separated. She hadn't seen her, which I didn't take for a good sign. By the time the concert would have normally been over, my wife walked in the door. She was happy and calm. Sensing this unexpected demeanor, I let her emotion take the lead in our conversation. She started by greeting me happily. She said she had a great time, and she appreciated me for trusting her to go out with her friends. I felt the hair stand up on my neck. She was thanking me for trusting her, but she was pretending the concert happened, and she loved it. I was speechless. I said she was welcome, and she only ever proved to me that she deserved my trust and love. She just smiled faintly and yawned. I was super uncertain about how to behave in front of her. I was glad she was alive, but now I suspected her of cheating on me and thinking she could get away with it. After she went to bed, I tried to check her phone, but it was locked down and sealed tight. No message previews or anything. I decided I needed to confront her, so I woke her up, hoping her grogginess and panic would help me catch her in her lies. I told her I knew what happened and that there was no concert because of the overly aggressive crowd. I followed that up by quickly demanding she tell me where she was all that time I tried calling her. She said, a lot, and at first, just admitted a man helped her to safety. She elaborated on how much he saved her life and then said they just hung out afterward. I told her I wasn't an idiot and asked if he expected something extra special in exchange for saving her life. I saw her wheels turning, and after a moment, she worked up some fake tears and said he took advantage of her. I immediately said if that was true, she needed to give me her unlocked phone so I could search it and then call the police on AP. She turned red and said no. She said I didn't need to go that far. I asked and pretended shocked why I shouldn't if AP just did what she said. She reluctantly gave me her phone unlocked. I was staring at her, so she didn't try to look at her newest message. I could tell she was holding her breath as I read. It was from someone programmed as Maddie, but based on the context, I could tell for sure that Maddie was a man, and my wife was a willing participant in what they did just a few hours earlier. I showed it to her and asked what excuse she had for it. She was stumped. She started really crying, and it was quite a difference. She changed tactics and started begging me to forgive her. I just laughed, and I verbally expressed my anger and disappointment. I said I wished I never met her, and she was a waste of time and space. I informed her that she didn't need to spread her legs just because he saved her. It was just luck, and a genuine thank you. Maybe a gift card would have been fine, but now our relationship is over. She didn't have anything useful to say, and she wouldn't matter to me ever again, so I kicked her out around 2 a.m. She was cold, miserable, and desperate. Trying to avoid bringing her parents into it, she called AP. He did not want her to come back over, and to avoid the awkward reasoning of why he hung up. I was laughing through the cracked window. She caved pretty quickly and called her parents. She didn't even have her own car, which meant AP gave her a ride home that night, and she counted on her father to come get her after I found out. He had to work at 5 a.m. and made her feel worse about not being able to patch things up with me for the night, or ever. Little did he know she was about to become his dependent again for the next 2 years. I don't know what happened after that, but I was lucky to find a respectable woman that hasn't failed me yet. I'm thankful I didn't spend more time with my ex before this happened. Today's third story. In this story, a couple's blissful marriage soured when she visited a doctor repeatedly, concealing an affair. Confronted, she confessed to the physician's misconduct. Enraged, her husband attacked the doctor but was offered a deal to drop charges. Divorcing, she moved in with the doctor, leading to public scrutiny. Ultimately, she faced the consequences of her actions, left with nobody. Now let's get into the story. Life was a very bubbly, outgoing, and talkative girl. She was also very sensual, and I was the first person she ever dated. We met at a karaoke bar when she was 19 and I was 24. We immediately started seeing each other as often as possible, and I proposed 2 years later. The first and only 5 years of marriage were great. She worked at a chain store, but she loved life and wasn't picky about what opportunities she got. Nothing was boring with her around. Her favorite thing to roleplay was nurse and patient, which makes sense considering what happened. She came home after a doctor's appointment one day, so I asked how her checkup went. She behaved so oddly for something that should have been so simple. I asked her what was wrong, but she wouldn't admit that anything unusual happened. I kept asking if she was sure, because by this point I knew her really well, and she looked distracted, perplexed, and just a little bit pleased. I wondered if she was amused by my concern. I let it go, but the next day I was thinking about her at work. Just then, I got a notification that she left work. She went to the doctor's office again. I immediately started to worry that my wife was diagnosed with something. I got home from work, and when she got home after an hour-long doctor's visit, I asked her what was wrong. She asked what I was talking about, and obviously, I told her I knew she went back to the doctor's again. All the color left her face, and she asked how I knew. I laughed uneasily and reminded her we have each other on a family GPS for safety's sake. She looked like she was going to be sick. I begged to know what was going on. She snapped at me, saying there was nothing to tell, and I needed to stop watching and questioning her. She went to bed angry, and I tried to sleep, concerned about what she was hiding. No intimacy occurred between us for a few days, and overall she didn't seem to know what to say to me. Until one night, at 3 a.m., she woke me up, saying she had something to tell me. She looked me in the eyes and cracked. It's hard to lie to someone you've known and lived with about something that doesn't just go away. She said something strange happened with the doctor. I couldn't breathe while she told me about a strange mammogram he gave her. He spontaneously offered it immediately after a regular checkup. She claimed she didn't know she was too young for one, so she accepted, but he didn't write anything down. All he did was feel her boobs for some time before saying they felt healthy. She felt weird about it, so she went back to ask questions, but the receptionist couldn't find any record of her having a mammogram. Then my wife went back to see the doctor again, where they had intimate. I couldn't believe what I just heard. She said it so fast and calmly. I had to ask if she was serious. She said yes and started to cringe, waiting for my full-blown fury. I couldn't imagine my wife willingly sleeping with another man, so in my mind, he forced himself on her. I left the house and drove straight to his office. I walked through the hallways without checking in and opened exam rooms until I found him and punched him in the face. Someone in the office called 911, and I was placed in handcuffs when police arrived. I tried to say it was because he slept with my wife, but I realized that if I tried to take him to court, there'd be no proof, and he probably had excellent lawyers. After giving statements, AP pulled me aside to speak privately. He asked me if we could make a deal. He would drop the charges against me if I didn't try to take him to court for malpractice. We could go our separate ways and spare ourselves the trouble. I agreed. When I got home, I found my wife packing her bags. Believe it or not, she was mad at me for attacking the doctor and acting like a madman. I told her I wasn't crazy for wanting to defend her or fight someone that took her from me. Then I added that I wanted to break up. She was surprised because she thought her leaving was on her own terms. I told her I couldn't touch her ever again, knowing she slept with the doctor and thought I was crazy for reacting. She also failed to tell me the truth for several days. Suddenly, she didn't want to keep packing and started looking for any reason that I should want her to stay. I told her to get out over and over until she was walking out, sobbing, and apologizing. Even though she was just sorry, I didn't want to forgive her. She said she was going to her parents' house, but she didn't actually plan on staying there. She was staying with the doctor, and I found out because she couldn't resist taking a selfie with him. Since we were getting divorced, she must have thought it was safe to post a cute dating picture. Well, it wasn't cute, and she posted it just in time for me to give it to my lawyer to help prove the infidelity that resulted in our divorce. I didn't have to give her anything. Even though AP was able to keep his practice, the town knew that somehow he was suddenly with my wife and caused our divorce. His business still took a hit, and then he broke up with my ex. That's when she started to emotionally pay the price for breaking my heart and trust. She finally had no one, which is just what her actions yielded.